Hello my chickens, we're going to fly Microsoft FS 2020 from Abu Dhabi International to Dubai International today. This continues my recent series flying the Cessna. First thing I'm going to do then is just turn a couple of things on. We're in the southeast corner of the airfield for orientation's sake. Let's get rid of that. And I would like to tune into ground and get a pushback, because I noticed that you start right on the edge here and there's... Oh, actually it's okay off to the right. Maybe we can just start the engine and turn to the right. I wish that guy wasn't there. Yeah, okay. I think we can start without getting a pushback, which is what I'm going to do. So I'll go back to clearance for now. We'll get the aircraft in a position to start it. The radios are already tuned. I've entered my flight plan before we got airborne, so it's 63 nautical. Not a huge trip. Give the aircraft a bit of fuel. Just actually make sure we've got a rich mixture for this as well. Okay, that's all in. That's in. Everything's working. I have got a new joystick, so I'm gonna be a bit nervous about how that's gonna work, but we'll see. We'll find out in a second. Looks like we're ready for the engine start here. Just check the prop is clear. Yes, it is. And away we go. All my needles and temperatures and pressures are all starting to sort themselves out. That looks good. Everything here is okay. We'll turn some electronics back on now. Nav, strobe, taxi and beacon. Fuel pump can remain off. Give those just half a second, then we'll start turning my avionics on. Good. Now looking at my compass heading, I'm on about 205 currently. So we'll just adjust. That's about right. And my track to my destination is 037. So I'll just set that up there. So it's about within QE of what I need. Bit more RPM required here by the sounds of it. Should be ready for taxi now. Let's tell ATC that we want to be on our way. And we'll go request taxi departing to the north. So we've got a hold short of 31 via D. We'll acknowledge that. 31 via D. Now, as is usual with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, I don't actually have a airfield map card that I can use, but having already had a look around the airport earlier, I know that it's off in that direction. So we'll tune to tower now, and we'll just taxi on out. Quick check to make sure there's no one over there. Get rid of this little window so it's a little less obvious. A little bit of power on, and we'll try and swing the aircraft around to the right without cutting that guy's head off. And get out here onto the taxiway and charge off to where we need to be. So it's not a long taxi and we're going a bit quick. You really don't want to have watched my taxiing effort there. I don't know if they've changed the way the ground handling works on this thing, but my taxiing effort was incredibly poor, but you don't have to see it. Here we are at the threshold. I'm gonna get ourselves hopefully takeoff clearance. We are now clear for takeoff 31 north, departure approved. Excellent. We'll acknowledge that and we'll go. I'm gonna roll straight out here, no messing about. Straight onto the runway and we'll get airborne and then onto our desired track. Bit of a scan of the sky to begin with. It's all clear. Now I have a new joystick and I'm very interested to see whether it makes life difficult. It's a VKB gunfighter or something similar. A VKB stick anyway. I've changed over from the Warthog, which I was using previously. My flaps are up for this. It's going to be a long takeoff. I'm not fussed about that because there's plenty of runway here, this long, big international airfield. Beautiful, nice and smooth. Just holding the stick a little bit firmly, about 10% back, and she lifted up wonderfully. There we are. Get the landing lights. Oh, they're off already. That's that's good. We'll hold this heading for a moment or two. And I don't know if I actually have to request departure. No, I don't. I'll just keep the radio transmissions menu open for the moment whilst we gain a bit of airspeed and get clear of the field. And I imagine then I'm going to get my departure. There it is, Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra. Continue north departure. I will contact you when you leave my airspace. Thank you. Clear for north departure. We can turn right now onto our heading. I will keep this one quite low, I think. I'll go for about 1,500 feet AGL on the transition to Dubai. We'll probably need to climb to 2,000 towards the end. So why don't we just do that early? We'll go for 2,000. 037 still set as my desired track. Cutting across the airfield. Let's hope there's no traffic on this other runway. Probably should have flown for about 2 or 3 more miles on that heading before making the right turn. A few bumps just there. A few bumps and lumps in the air. Alright, so a bit more of a right turn required to get onto my 037-ish. Now this is interesting. My compass is now misaligned. My track is actually 060, so I didn't quite set that up very well, did I? So that is my actual track. Now my compass should be aligned with my magnetic and my GPS compasses to a degree anyway. And I'll just bring aircraft left onto 037, then we'll hit the autopilot. Altitude coming up 1,500 there, so not much more to climb on 40 now. Very soon I'll be able to drop the nose to the level. Should we go up a bit more? We'll go up 300 feet. Airspeed looks really good. Wow, this thing can really push itself along. That'll do me nicely. Bring the engine back a fraction, we'll turn the AP on, and we'll go for heading and altitude. And hopefully that will just keep us on the proper track. At 1,900 feet. I think the aircraft's going to adjust a couple of times here. We'll just keep an eye on it. That looks pretty good. Quick TMP check, 2450 RPM, everything's in the green, fuel flow is good, fuel quantity is good, so we're not dumping any fuel. Airspeed is quite high at 115 knots. I'm going to bring that back to about 2350 RPM, and we should cruise along at a good airspeed. Now, we don't have long to read today, but we are going to be continuing with Johnny Johnson's Wing Leader book. Let's find a nice view with a bit of cockpit and a bit of externals. There we go. And I'll start reading while the view is fixed in place. So we're continuing from chapter entitled Tangmere Wing. And in the previous video, Johnson actually got his first aerial victory. And that was the last sentence, actually, of the previous read, was him getting his first kill confirmed. I just noticed this aircraft is wandering considerably off course here. Track is now 048. even though it is ostensibly on autopilot. I just need that track to come around. Anyway, we'll keep reading, and if that track stays off for too long, then we'll manually adjust it. And we'll manually correct the aircraft, but I don't mind. It's only a 10 degree, now it's an 11 degree divergence, 12 degree divergence. It's possible we're being blown off by the wind, but I'll let it run for a bit. Okay, let's continue reading then from Wing Leader. This is now, I think, 1941. The bombers flew over France on every suitable day, and as the high summer wore on, so the resistance of the 109s seemed to increase, and sometimes we had to fight our way to the target from the coast. One day in July we shot down Tangmere's 500th Hun, and the same fight witnessed the squadron's 50th victory. This was not a large squadron score, since some units, including 610 Squadron, already claimed more than 100. But we had got off to a poor start last autumn, and our present masters seemed satisfied with our progress. For his leadership of the wing, Barder received a bar to his DSO, whilst Burton, Ken and Cocky were each awarded the DFC. These victories and honours were not achieved without loss and casualties. One of our most experienced sergeant pilots, McCairns, failed to return from a sweep to Lille, but 2 days later, Roy Marples, streaking back low over the French coast, saw the missing pilot's Spitfire intact on a stretch of beach where he had crashed after being badly shot up. Leading a section of 2 Spitfires, I lost my wingman on a late evening show over France. We were badly bounced, and we didn't see the 109s until they had opened fire. The wingman was a sergeant pilot, a kindly farmer's son from Gloucestershire, and the next thing we heard of Mabbott was that the Germans had buried him with military honours at Saint-Omer. A few days later we lost the flight commander of B Flight when the handsome Colin McPhee was brought down to be a prisoner for the remainder of the war. Our mustachioed aerobatic king only saved his neck by his remarkable aerobatic skill. During a dogfight he was cut off from the rest of us, and the Messerschmitt settled down to hack him to pieces. His Spitfire was badly hit, but it was still flying, and he stayed with it because a pilot only takes to his parachute as a last resort. He deliberately put his aircraft into a wicked-looking spin. But the 109s still harried him, and at ground level they came in for the kill. This time he foxed them by half rolling his Spitfire and holding it inverted in a shallow dive. The 109s drew off to watch the end, but our pilot had seen a reasonable field, and as he crossed the boundary hedge he rolled back to a normal attitude and smacked the Spitfire into an excellent wheels-up landing. He stepped out of the wreck unscathed, with the 109s still milling overhead. This remarkable character also returned on foot via Spain and Gibraltar. I really wish I knew who this guy was. Johnny Johnson never says his name. He talks about him a couple of times, but his name is never mentioned. I've always wondered exactly who he was. Roy, making another low-level return flight across the channel, flew low over the water. It was one of those calm days when the smooth, glassy surface of the sea made it impossible to judge one's height accurately, and Roy churned up the water with the 3 blades of his wooden propeller. He staggered back to Hawkinge, less about 9 inches from each of the blades, and had to do some fast talking to mitigate his error. Running short of petrol after another sweep, one of our sergeant pilots, Derek Beedham, eased his Spitfire out to sea near Brighton and then bailed out. The aircraft fell harmlessly into the sea, and Beedham was soon picked up by a lifeboat. He had a hero's reception from the local townsfolk, who were grateful that his Spitfire had not crashed on their rooftops. But his return to the squadron was a much cooler affair, for he should have landed on one of the many coastal airfields and saved his valuable aircraft. But he atoned for his mistake a few days later, when only one leg of his undercarriage would come down, and he carried out a most skillful landing with little damage to the aircraft. Ken had a close shave when his squadron was set upon by a determined bunch of 109s, and his escape was largely due to the brilliant ability of his wingman, Tony Gaze, a young Australian who smacked down 2 Messerschmitts from Ken's tail. They were split up, and Ken eventually crossed the French coast near Calais at ground level, and as usual the light flak gunners were ready and waiting. Ken's Spitfire was hit, and he opened the sliding hood in case he had to bail out. The flak still bracketed his Spitfire, and a small piece of shrapnel tore through the open cockpit and severed the bridge of his goggles, which were pushed up on the front of his leather helmet. The goggles fell across his face, struck his knees, and were later found on the floor of the cockpit. Ken's usual urbane demeanour was considerably ruffled on this occasion. Sometimes we escorted a few of the new 4-engined bombers on these daylight operations, and early one morning we witnessed the death of a Stirling. The 6 bombers were flying in 2 Vics of 3, and we were close to them in the beehive. Although the sun was dangerously low behind us on our withdrawal, we were not altogether unaware of the ever-changing tones of light and shade in earth and sky. The Messerschmitts had not attacked since we left the target, and for once the beehive simmered quietly as we winged our way to the coast. But a high stern attack by a brace of 109s would transform it into a swarming, twisting rabble. The only sound to break the muted drone of our engines was the occasional muttered command and Woodhall's reassuring commands from Tangmere. I thought of the tremendous breakfast I should devour after we landed, and that in a few weeks there would be an abundance of mushrooms on our grass airfield. A few isolated bursts of flak harassed the bombers. The nearest fighters sheared off and zoomed up a few hundred feet to clear the danger zone, but the 6 Stirlings held their level, evenly spaced pattern. Then, one of the large bombers fell slowly behind it and its port wing dropped, so that it went into a gentle turn to the left. At first there seemed to be no danger, but suddenly an engine fell out, red flames flickered near the cockpit, and our thoughts were for the crew. The bomber took a long time to reach the ground in a series of slow, curving turns, and only 2 parachutes blossomed out. We were silent, helpless, and yet fascinated by the death agonies of the Stirling. When quite near to the ground, she plunged into a vertical dive and then exploded with a great sheet of orange flame, which was followed by a swiftly rising pall of white smoke and thin plumes of exploding ammunition. One of our own squadron pilots had also seen the crash from the ground. He was Sergeant Crabtree, who had been shot down a week previously, and he saw the incident from his hiding place in a nearby farmhouse. Soon afterwards, he returned to the squadron with the full story. Our dead comrades from the Stirling were buried by the Germans in a village near the crash. Hundreds of French country folk made their way to the grave and brought floral tributes to the British airmen. Crabtree told us these journeyings reached such proportions that the local German commandant ordered them to cease and ruled that no flowers should be brought to the grave. So for a few days no one visited the place, and the flowers faded, and it seemed as if the airmen were forgotten. And then one morning the graves were replenished with wild flowers for all to see. They had been put there during the night, and they were placed at frequent intervals. We were greatly encouraged by this little moving story, for sometimes when we fought our way out of France single-handed, the sky itself seemed alien. If the worst happened and we were brought down and still lived, it was heartwarming to know that on the ground we might find warmth and humanity. Okay, let's have a quick check now where we are. We are still off track by a good 10 degrees here, and we have 38 nauticals to go, so we're almost halfway. If we look in the distance, we've now got some of the giant buildings of Dubai showing, the Burj Khalifa being one of them, just left of 12 there, and we've got a couple of cruise ships out offshore as well, but nothing else is rendering at this distance. It's just those weird individual landmarks, which is quite weird, quite strange. I will, I think, adjust the course slightly, and then we'll try reading a little bit more before we get too close to the field and need to start thinking about our approach. So, track IR back on, and I'll turn the AP off. Thank you very much. We're going to come left. And we'll sit on that, heading right there, and hopefully the aircraft will now hold it. And now for some reason the aircraft's instantly trying to come to the right again. Exactly the problem I had earlier, and it always wants to come around to 045 degrees, and I don't know why it's doing that. It may be just that the heading marker here is off, or because we are using a magnetic or something like that. But there we go, the aircraft is now sitting on 40, which is much better than 48, so I'll take that as my heading. With Abu Dhabi now well behind, I've got the wavy patterns of the desert underneath, and we're approaching the city of Dubai. I'll just check visually if the airfield's in sight. We'll do a big zoom in. Don't see it. Maybe a quick check of the map will help us here. I don't know if that's Abu Dhabi International there. No, it's up there. No, it's not. There it is. So we've still got a good, half of the journey to go, I would think. There is an aircraft which appears to be on final for the 3-1 runway, maybe it is. No, what is that? 3-0. I think at some point we will need to veer off to the right, and we'll end up over here by the OMSH beacon. I'll probably wait till we're past Oscar Mike Delta Mike, and then I'll make a right turn, and then we'll call in. So that's the plan. We can continue reading Johnny Johnson. New view. Oh, there's mountains over there. Look at that, Gandalf. Let's have a look at those whilst we continue reading. This chapter is called Dog's Body, which is obviously a reference to Douglas Bader. High summer at Tangmere. I shall never forget those stirring days when it seemed that the sky was always blue and the rays of the fierce sun hiding the glinting Messerschmitts, or when there was a high layer of thin cirrus cloud. Although this filtered the sun and lessened the glare, it was dangerous to climb through it, for your grey-green Spitfire stood out against the white backcloth. When the grass was burnt to a light brown colour and discoloured with dark oil stains where we parked our Spitfires, and when the waters of the Channel looked utterly serene and inviting as we raced out of France at ground level, hot and sweating in the tiny greenhouse of our cockpit. High summer, and in the air it is heavy with the scent of white clover as we lounge in our deck chairs, watching a small tractor cut down the long clover and grass on our airfield. In some places it is almost a foot high, but it is not dangerous, and we know that if we are skillful enough to stall our Spitfires just when the tips of the grasses caress the wheels, then we shall pull off a perfect landing. I've got an airfield right in front of me here. Better be careful. I think I'm just going to fly right over it. Why not? It is Sunday, and although it is not yet time for lunch, we have already escorted some Stirlings to bomb an inland target. For some obscure reason, the Luftwaffe seem to oppose our weekend penetrations with more than their usual ferocity, and now we are waiting for a second call, which will surely come on this perfect day. Okay, now actually I'm going to stop reading all of a sudden, because I just wonder whether we're entering some airspace that we don't... Ah, yeah. Unfortunately, because I haven't been paying attention, I've now lost I've lost my air traffic control services, which is a bit silly, so that's a bit annoying. Cessna blah blah radar contact 4 miles southwest. 9.4. Okay, nearest airport list. So we've got Abu Dhabi International, or Dubai Airport. There's 2 of them here. Oh, there's 3 of them. Okay, there's lots of Dubai airports here. So let me just make sure I'm going to be talking to the one I actually want to talk to. And here we are about to fly over something huge. Oscar Mike Delta Mike. No, Oscar Mike Delta Whiskey. Now it is for us Oscar Mike Delta Bravo. Delta Bravo is our actual destination airfield. So Delta Bravo. It's currently not showing, so I'm just going to keep flying until we get a bit closer. We're ripping over an airfield here at 2,000 feet, which is surely illegal. I'm not paying any attention to airspace rules. I'm just flying a straight line. Maybe for the next flight I should actually plan my leg a little bit better and actually try and avoid things like this. But that requires a lot of concentration, and it probably means I can't do any reading of the book. So I'll have to weigh up whether that's worthwhile doing for the sake of realism, but perhaps less entertaining. Okay. So here we are overhead, whatever field that is. And there's the Burj Khalifa. Quite some distance yet before we get to our destination. Right, we can keep reading then. I've got 23 nautical miles remaining. We'll get a couple of pages in before we have to set up for our approach. Okay, so they're talking about the a weekend attack that they're about to, or their weekend sortie. For once, our chatter is not confined to Messerschmitts and guns and tactics. Yesterday afternoon, Nip and I borrowed the Padre's car, a fairly small family saloon, and we drove to Brighton for dinner. Before the return journey, we collected 2 pilots from 145 Squadron, and the small group, wedged together, began the journey back to Tangmere. Nip was driving, the rest of us were asleep, and along the front at Hove he had a vague recollection of some confusion and shouting, and a half-hearted barrier stretched across part of the road. He pressed on and thought little of the incident, but soon after the engine ran unevenly and became very hot. Somehow we coaxed the car home. The next morning, a close inspection revealed a sinister hole just below the rear window. Shocked, we traced the path of the bullet, for it turned out that a sentry at Hove had challenged us and, not receiving a suitable reply, he had opened fire. The bullet had passed between the 2 pilots on the back seat, had continued between Nip and me at shoulder height and drilled a neat hole through the dashboard, grazed the cylinder head and ploughed out through the radiator. Small wonder that the little car had barely struggled back to Tangmere. The Padre is more concerned with our lucky escape than the damage to his car, but Billy Burton is incensed that his pilots should have to run a gauntlet of fire at Hove. He is busy penning a letter to the military, but we keep out of his way, for we think he is opening his attack from a very insecure base. There is a fine haze, and the soft bulk of the South Downs is barely discernible. We can just see the spire of Chichester Cathedral, but above the haze the visibility is excellent, and you can see Lille from 50 miles. Lille. It lies 70 miles inland from Le Touquet, and it marks the absolute limit of our daylight operations over France. We often escort bombers to Lille, for it is a vital communication centre, and it contains important heavy industries. Not unnaturally, the Luftwaffe are very sensitive about it. Their ground control organisation has time to assess our intentions and to bring up fighter reinforcements, and the run-up to the target is always strongly contested. We can be sure of a stiff fight when Lille is the target for the bombers. The ops phone rings, and the airman who answers it calls out to the CO. Billy Burton listens and replaces the receiver. That was the wing commander. Takeoff at 1325 with 610 and 145. We shall be target supporting wing to the bombers. It's Lille again. Suddenly the dispersal hut is full of chatter and activity. We shall be the last Spitfires into the target area, for our job is to see that the beehive leaves the area without interference. The sun will be almost directly overhead, and the Messerschmitts will be there, lurking and waiting in its strong glare. We shall fight today. 16 nautical miles to go. We'll keep reading another page or two. Highly coloured ribbons are pinned across a large map on the wall to represent the tracks of the beehive and the 6 supporting fighter wings, so that the map looks like one of the bold diagrams of London Underground's system. The 2 flight sergeants talk with their respective flight commanders about the serviceability of our Spitfires, and our names and the letters of our aircraft are chalked up on a blackboard which shows 3 sections of finger 4s. It is fascinating to watch the reactions of various pilots. They fall into 2 broad categories: those who are going out to shoot, and those who secretly and desperately know that they will be shot at, the hunters and the hunted. The majority of the pilots, once they've seen their names on the chalkboard, walk out to their Spitfires for a pre-flight check and for a word or two with their ground crews. They tow on their May Wests, check their maps, study the weather forecast, and have a last-minute chat with the leaders or the wingmen. These are the hunters. The hunted, that very small minority, although every squadron usually possesses at least one, turned to their escape kits and made quite sure that they were wearing the tunic with the silk map sewn in to a secret hiding place, that they had at least one oilskin-covered packet of French francs, and 2 if possible, that they had a compass and a revolver, and they sometimes specially made clothes to assist their activities once they were shot down. When they went through these agonized preparations, they reminded me of aged countrywomen meticulously checking their shopping lists before catching the bus for the market town. A car pulls up outside and our leader stumps into the dispersal hut, breezy and full of confidence. They'll be about today, Billy. We'll run into them over the target, if not before. Our job is to see the Sterlings get clear and cover any stragglers. Stick together. Who's flying in my section? Smith, Cocky and Johnny, sir, answers Billy Burton. Good, Beta grins. Hang on and get back into the abreast formation when I straighten out, okay? Okay, sir, we chorus together. Let's see. 12 miles out. Quick check of the old Maparoonie. And it's going to be time for that right turn in a couple of minutes. Short bit of reading, and then we'll make the turn and start calling in for our airfield. In fact, why don't we just do that now? There it is, Abu Dhabi International. Tune in to tower. Request airspace transition. Acknowledge transition edge clearance. Transition approved. Report clear of tower airspace. Ah. Okay. So I'm not actually going to go through. I'm just going to transition, and I guess I probably want to request a full stop landing now. Oh, hello. Make a left base for runway 30. Ah, that's interesting. A left base for 30R. 30 right, left base. Okay, right. It's time to stop reading then. Douglas Bader and his chaps are going to have to wait because we've got business ahead of us. So let me just make sure I've got the right page here. Excellent. And we'll make a right turn, which will bring us in for a left base for 3. Make a left base 3R. Excellent. Okay, good. Now we're going to have our workload picking up all of a sudden. Autopilot can come off. Hands on the controls. Check that everything seems okay. We are... Oops, get the old track IR working there. 38, 38, we're 8.6 out, so the airfield should be dead ahead of us. 8 nautical miles away. Ugh. Okay, that's it over there, I think. Quick check of the GPS. Map, yeah. That should be the... That is definitely Abu Dhabi International. Gonna make a right turn so we can swing in onto this left base. I wonder if I should keep this open, this little... Let's just get the ATIS. Yada yada yada. Fuel clouds 1,000. Well, it's pretty much clear down here. Yada yada yada. Temperature 24, dew point blah blah blah. Altimeter 2991. Okay, 2991. We're on 2991 already. I'm bringing the engine back. I've still got my landing intentions steady. And we're a wee way out from their field. So it's going to be 30 right. I'm going to make sure I line up on the right hand runway. Looking to this airspace over here, there is no traffic that I can see, but it sounds like there might be traffic down on the field. So apologies for having this window still open. It's quite a big interface. I might have to change the size of the text of the menus and all that stuff. This is a lot better than Abu Dhabi was. There's much more buildings and stuff that have been added here. So Dubai is a lot better than Abu Dhabi. You know, just looking around. It's still not fully built up like Dubai really is. For example, the Burj Khalifa is just sitting there in the middle of nothing. There's quite a skyline here in reality. I can see traffic now. I've got parked traffic and some more parked traffic. I've got to keep my eyes open for airborne traffic because I'm going to be cutting across it. Airspeed is okay at 100. I won't go much slower than that, I don't think. Trying to hold my 1900 as we approach the field, and there's my threshold. I should really be way higher for this. This is how aircraft miss their runways and end up landing on taxiways, because they're coming in low like this, and if you're not perfectly lined up with the correct runway, it just all looks the same when they're all running parallel to each other. So as long as I get a good side of the 30 right threshold, then I'll be fine. There's an aircraft taking off now. I'm assuming that's 30 right. No, that's 30 left. Okay. Yes, clear for takeoff, 3 left. There's an aircraft using 30 left for takeoff. So there he is, getting airborne. A little yellow dot, and he's disappeared now and become a flashing light. That I think is a human player. And now he's changed over to Dubai ATIS. Oh no, he's changed to probably the area channel. We'll put the landing lights on. All my beacons and signals and bleeps and whistles and bangers are all turned on. So we're glowing bright colours as we approach now. There's the navigation lights of that other aircraft over there. I hate these things. Yuck. I keep forgetting to turn those off. Cessna XGS, that's us. Clear to landway 30 right, wind at 289 at 25. Let's acknowledge clearance. Good, good, good. Turning in now. That is left there. Right is right of it, as you would expect. Too fast. Kill the engine. We'll let the airspeed come back before we deploy any flaps. I don't think I need to do anything now, radio-wise, so I'm going to minimize that menu. Wow, there's aircraft this side of the threshold and buildings, so definitely don't want to be landing short here. And we'll get a little bit of flap in. Secure the cockpit for landing. T's and P's are good. Fuel is fine. I might put the fuel pump on. You never know if you're going to need it for a quick go around. Right, procedure if we fail on this takeoff is to make a... Well, we could probably just land on the taxiways, to be honest. If I don't make this landing, if something goes wrong and I need to go around, I will just pump the throttle and try and clear those buildings, I guess. It's not going to happen. Getting slow, power on. Sucks to be a big airliner coming in behind me at triple my speed. Look at this motorway here, just glued to the terrain. I'm really looking forward to flying over some parts of the world where things are a bit more accurate and detailed. This area around here is a bit poorly done. Still better than, you know, most of the other things I've flown in the past, simulation-wise, but... Okay, getting a little quick. I'm just kind of put some power on because I really want to make sure I clear these buildings and things that are underneath me. I don't have very accurate information about quite where they are. Still at 900 feet apparently AGL, and my altimeter is set correctly. We'll drop the next level of flap. Nose is now going to balloon. And full flap down. This is our short final approach. Coming across the... Good. Oh, it's really frustrating having to use mouse to check communications menus and stuff, when, especially when on a short final approach like this. Okay, how's my airspeed? Too quick, but we'll let that come back. Bit of arresting on the power. That's 65 to 70. I like that. That's a good power setting. We just roll straight down here. Descent rate's a bit too high for my liking, so a bit of power on just to allow that to come back. And we're in. A little bit of correction with the rudder there just to stop the aircraft sliding away to the left. Holding the nose wheel down. Ages and ages and ages of space there to use. Okay. Now the tricky part. Turn next taxiway. Right or left? This looks like GA over here. I'm hoping it's GA. Acknowledge ground handoff. Okay. Tune Dubai ground. Okay, I'm taxiing across this section here. Request taxi to parking. Taxiway P66, acknowledged clearance. Now, I have no idea where P66 is. This is a big issue I have with MSFS, is that where is P66? They don't have in-cockpit charts. If I want to get an airfield chart, I'm going to have to find some and download them. And then I can't be sure that whatever airfield charts I download are actually matching the airfield charts in the sim. Whether they're based on the real world. I mean, where is this P66? November N6. Okay, is this, which is the next one? Is this going up or down? P6. Okay, is this P6 here? I mean, should I just park here? Anyway, I'm going to stop the airplane here because I don't actually know where my allocated parking space is. I guess you could turn on some kind of wizard which guided you. But I don't want to use that. I would much rather have a proper working airfield layout chart which I can then look at and map and, you know, taxi along with it. But it doesn't exist. Okay, we've made it to our destination. Another one of these flights complete. We're getting close to the end of the Emirates now. Perhaps one more flight across the Emirates and then we cross the Gulf to Iran. Brake on. We'll cut the mixture. Make sure the avionics are off so we don't break them. The flaps are already up. And, whoa, okay, it automatically just drops me out to this, which I'll hit continue. And yeah, I do want to cut the mixture. That was intentional. Great stuff. Throttle's off. Brakes are on. Electrics are already off. Everything else is now off, including the fuel pump, which I left on probably for too long. Battery and alternator off. Magnetos off. Cockpit secure. We're done. Thanks for watching. Another flight complete.